Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, maybe the only show that shows you how to close the wealth gap in your own life. With the man who's done it for many, our wealth coach himself, Tyrone French. Hey, Tyrone.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Closing the Wealth Gap. I'm your host, Tyrone French. Hey, before we get started, what I'd like for you to do is download my free mobile app. We price it to whereas everybody can afford it. It is free. All I want you to do is go to tyronefrench.coach. Again, that's www.tyronefrench.coach. Or if you got your phone, take it out your pocket, take it out your purse, and just text Tyrone French to 36260. Again, that's Tyrone French to 36260, and you will have my entire business in the palm of your hand. Calculators, videos, blog, newsletter, and again, you will have direct contact to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I like hearing your responses, so shoot me an email at tyrone@tyronefrench.com. With that being said, I got a special guest in the studio today, Mr. Troy A. Small. I am really looking forward to this interview. Now, Troy, I know you hit the freeway. It took you a while to get in here. Thank you for being here today.
Sure thing, Tyrone. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here for sure.
Yeah, and again, I was really looking forward to this interview. And just full disclosure, Mr. Small is a consultant, and I'm going to get into his bio in a few minutes, but basically he is going to be representing me. So I just full disclosure, I just want you guys to know that I'm having a show with somewhat of a bias. He's extremely professional, extremely organized, and once I get into his bio, you'll understand why. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of his accomplishments, and here it is. Troy A. Small is the founder and president of Copper Water Consulting, Inc., a certified service, disabled, veteran-owned small business and California disabled veteran business enterprise based in Southern California. Troy is also the vice president of marketing and sales for Skyway Acquisitions, a government contracting, consulting, and training firm. Troy is a retired United States Marine, I'm not going to hold that against you, who served 15 of his 20 years on active duty as a contingency consulting officer. Troy has 30 years experience in acquisitions career field and served in several roles during his tenure with the Department of Defense, to include purchasing agent, contract specialist, contracting officer, simplified acquisitions branch supervisor, procurement chief, Chief of Contracting for Regional Contracting Center, Fallujah, and Assistant Program Manager for Contracting Program Executive Office, C41. Troy holds an MBA with the National University and is DAWIA Level 3 certified in contracting and Level 2 certified in program management. Troy's passion is using his military expertise, contracting expertise, and business acumen to help veterans and disadvantaged business owners to execute, move their needle, and achieve their business goals. Now, the reason I wanted to use his entire bio is because I wanted you to understand the person that's sitting across from me today. Again, Paul, thank you for being here. I know that your time is extremely valuable, and for you to take the time to help some of these small business, disabled veterans, I applaud you for that. So thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. So thank you for the invitation. And we spoke a while back, and so I'm happy to see that we were finally able to make this happen, because we spoke about doing the podcast together.
Yes, sir.
So here we are.
Outstanding. Hey, let's take it all the way back, though. What made you join the Marine Corps? What was your motivation?
Well, one of my motivations was that my mom was very strict.
Okay.
So I was ready to get away from home.
Okay.
And then, quite honest, my mom is taught me a lot. I mean, she's my hero in my life, honestly. And I've been reflecting on this because I was recently had to answer some questions for an article, and I was thinking back. I'm like, you know what? My mom is actually the one who really poured into me and gave me my discipline. So I actually was running from her to go to the Marine Corps. So that's how much discipline I had before I left home. And so that was one of the main reasons, really, was to kind of get away. I was from a rough place in St. Louis.
Okay.
I had not known. I was a great high school student, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do after high school. And
Okay.
of course, when you come from quote unquote rough areas or places like that, you tend to the influence of the neighborhood, the
Yes.
influence of people around you, they really influence you, whether you have good upbringing or not. And so that was starting to affect me. I was starting to do things I should not do, things
Yeah.
I was taught not to do, but I was still doing them.
Right.
And so I figured I need to get away from my environment. And I had always appreciated the Marine Corps from a little boy.
Okay.
And so, so I went on ahead and pursued that dream.
Okay, so it seems like as far as mom being very strict and very disciplined, the Marine Corps was a piece of cake for you.
I wouldn't say it was a piece of cake, but I didn't have as much challenge as some of the other recruits and young Marines, but particularly in boot camp is where it
Yes.
shows itself. And
Absolutely.
I was kind of like, oh, I'm used to being yelled at. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm used to making my bed. I'm used to washing my clothes. I'm used to cleaning up after myself. I'm like, okay, this is Mary Small's home. This
Absolutely.
is my mom's home.
And that was the point that I was trying to make. But also, with you coming from a rough environment, you have a tendency of becoming a part of what you're around. And so you can take that same energy, that same drive, that same stick-to-itiveness and apply it to something negative. And so I applaud you for having the courage to want to change and to join the Marine Corps, which is I gave you a little flack earlier, but which is an outstanding organization for discipline and getting young men and young women to actually realize their full potential. So, congratulations on retiring from the military. And give me a little background as far as what happened after boot camp, because I know a lot of times people choose career fields in the military that don't really translate into a civilian professional occupation. So just give me a little background as far as, in my audience, a little background as far as your transition as far as going into procurement and what you do now.
Sure. I'll just start with my military stories. It's fairly quick. So I joined the Marine Corps in 1989 is when I shipped for boot camp.
Okay.
I actually signed up in October of '88.
Okay.
So I was ready to go when I was still in high school. I already signed on the dotted line. Went to boot camp here in San Diego, California. After boot camp, I went to machine gunner school and infantry training up at Camp Pendleton. Shortly after that, I was stationed in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii, with 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines. Ultimately, I went to Desert Shield, Desert Storm as a a heavy machine gunner team lead and actually gunner as well to Desert Shield, Desert Storm as a part of 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines.
Okay.
After Desert Storm, after the Gulf War, the military did cutbacks like they often do. And
Yes.
so I had to either change military occupational specialties, change jobs, or get out. And so I was given 3 options. One of them was supply administration.
Okay.
So I chose supply. Once I chose supply and I went to school and I ultimately was stationed at Marine Security Guard Battalion in Quantico, Virginia, back in '93, I learned about the purchasing and contracting field.
Okay.
Because there was a supply Marine at MSG Battalion that was supporting the contracting office. So he was the link between the Marine security guards around the world and the contracting office.
Okay.
Because the whole purpose of contracting is to secure goods and services or purchase goods and services that are not in the supply system.
Right.
So if it's not in the system, you have to go and purchase it, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what he would do. He would purchase like athletic equipment, things like beach volleyballs, basketballs, things like that for the Marine security guards around the world because they're on their own, so they need entertainment and other more important things as well. So long story short, I saw that role. I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. I actually like that, and I also was like, I thought to myself, wow, this actually might be the thing that I can do as an adult. Like whenever I decide to get out of the Marine Corps, because at that time I didn't plan on doing 20 years per se.
Right.
However, I did have enough mindset or smartness, if you will, to think and say, hey, this is something that I can do when I get out. And so fast forward, as a supply person at the time, I did a year's supply. I changed jobs to purchasing and contracting ultimately in 1994. And so I've been doing contracting since then. That led me to all of the roles that you named off, led me to all of those roles. And then ultimately, I resigned from the Navy in 2018 to pursue my business full time on my own.
Okay. Now, one of the things that got my attention based on your resume is that you deal with service-connected disabled veterans.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, it came about because I call myself, and I'm a Marine's Marine. Like I feel like I'm kind of a hard guy, if you will. I'm not a soft guy. I don't, so I just did a 14,000 feet elevation hike with a bunch of guys, military guys and first responders. So I look for challenges in life. So, but to the point, helping veterans, part of, being a Marine, I've always cared for Marines. I was a Marine Corps drill instructor. So even though you have to be hard on recruits, you're still making Marines. And so I just have I guess what some people would say, a soft spot in my heart for military people, particularly service disabled veterans. And so specifically to that, because the service disabled veteran owned small business certification at the federal level, and then also certain states have certification programs for veterans. Yes, that's actually a benefit. Like, so as a service disabled veteran, you have an additional benefit of being able to get a government contracting certification, which helps you to have reduced competition when trying to compete for contracts.
I'm glad you brought that up based on a benefit, because that's what I was actually getting to. Most of the time when you're looking at veterans and disabled veterans, service connected disabled veterans, they look at compensation, or they look at health care, dental, maybe parking, citations, handicap stickers or decals and things like that. But what they're not looking at is based on them having access to military contracts. And so there are a lot of veterans, again, that really can't maintain, just based on their disability rating, can't maintain full employment. So a lot of times it would be to their advantage to try to procure some of these military contracts to where they can generate a secondary income for themselves. So can you kind of touch on the process as far as, let's say if a veteran, they're hearing this, but they don't know anything about this benefit, but now they're curious, you got their interest. How do they go about, what is the first step as far as, moving towards receiving government contracts? And are there funds or are there contracts that are allocated specifically for veterans and service-connected disabled veterans?
Sure, that's a great question. And I'll lead this off by saying I had that challenge as well, in the sense that when I was working for the Navy, it was getting to be a bit much for me. I had already knew that before I had accepted the role to switch back over to the Navy and work in the program office, because I just didn't really want to go to a queue firm. I was actually trying to get away from that, but because in life we need money, and and at that time I didn't know about all, I didn't have a bunch of different cash flow, and it was just the job, the W-2, and that's what we want people to get away from, because when you're that way, you don't really have a lot of options for yourself. And so because of that, going down back to your question of how to go down the path of taking advantage of the veteran certifications, whether it be service disabled or veteran, the first step I would say is that you can start at the federal level. So understand that with government contracting, basically look at it as jurisdictions. Like the federal jurisdiction is the federal government. So the 15 agencies that support the executive branch of the government, that's federal government. But you also have the states. So we have 50 states. That's a different government. A police officer in California cannot go and arrest someone in Texas, and vice versa. Just like Riverside County Sheriff cannot go up down to San Diego and arrest anyone. They don't have the jurisdiction. So if you relate that to contracting, at the federal level, you have service disabled veteran owned small business certification available.
Okay.
You also have a veteran owned small business certification. Both of these certs may be attained from the Small Business Administration.
Okay.
The program is called the Vet Cert program, or Veteran Certification Program.
Okay.
And you can submit via the SBA website. And if you are service disabled, you can apply for the Service Disabled Veteran Owned Small Business Cert, the SDVOSB.
Okay.
Now, in order to do that, you do have to have a rating letter. So this actually kind of really hits home to your question, especially helping veterans to understand what to do. Is like a lot of times, if you're in the military and you've been hurt, if you haven't been seen, if
Right.
you didn't go and get seen in medical, that may harm you because you
Yes.
don't have any record of your injury, disease, or whatever it is that you're claiming in your record, in your
Right.
medical record. But if you have something in your medical record, and maybe you bummed your knee, or you went on a hike, or it hurt your back, and lately you're like, man, my back has been hurting, that may be as a result of that injury that you sustained while in service. That is what makes it service connected.
Okay. And for some people that don't understand, as far as the ratings letter, when you have a disability through the VA, you have a rating based on a percentage. And based on that percentage, you have that letter. And so that's a qualifying document to open the door for you to receive these contracts. Now, you also mentioned when you talked about, I would say, jurisdiction, whether it's a federal or state, but you could also do this on the city level. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I have a saying. When I'm teaching classes, I tell the folks, you can go outside your house and throw a rock. If you got a pretty good arm, throw a good long rock throw, you would probably hit a government.
Yes.
Like some form, whether it be your local municipal government.
Yes.
Whether it be your local college, like
Yes.
San Jacinto College, right, or Cal State University, San Marcos, right,
Yes.
down in Temecula, or down in San Marcos for that matter. Your airport board, your transit agencies, every municipal
Exactly.
city has
Yes.
a contracting office, and then your state has contracting they have departments that have to buy and sell. So the states do contracting, as well as all of the counties.
Right. So the reason I brought that up is because some of our listeners, they may, just based on their own intestinal fortitude, may think, well, starting at the federal level or the state level, that's beyond my range or my reach. But like you said, if you got a good enough arm strength and you can throw a rock, there's municipalities all over the place that actually need goods and services that they contract out.
Absolutely. And I would also say, don't let the fact that it is federal government deter you or make you think that because it's federal, that makes it more difficult. That's not necessarily the case.
Right.
All contracting is generally the same. It's just that the different jurisdictions or the governments, they maybe put out their solicitations a little differently. They may ask for you to respond back a little differently. Maybe they want you to mail it. Maybe they want you to send it on email, or maybe they want you to use their procurement portal.
Right.
Those nuances, but that's just process.
Okay.
And so I would say that really, my recommendation to folks is to get in where you fit in.
Yes.
Start where you're at.
Right.
I'm a big fan of, why am I going to try to go to Texas or anywhere across we'll go to DC and do work when I can do work here in Southern California?
Exactly.
No, I'm not even the state, Southern California.
Exactly. So,
You're right.
So we narrowed it down, and now we're going to get a little bit more specific because I want to talk about veterans and disabled veterans.
Sure.
And so what would be the first step? I mean, we're talking about these contracts, but what is the structure? Meaning that based on, do you have to be a small business owner? What is the structure that you have to present in order to gain some of these contracts?
Yeah, at the very basic level, you need to have a business, and that could be a sole proprietorship,
Okay,
or an S corp, C corp, LLC, or what have you. So pretty much any business. But if you are a sole proprietorship, you may have a little bit more challenges ahead of you because you're probably going to have to prove to people or the folks that you are legit.
Okay.
They may not directly say prove that you're legit, but they're going to want to see that you're legit. That's just that's how it is when a sole proprietorship is competing against LLCs or C corps, because I can go to the state's website and look up and see if someone's registered with the state.
Okay.
But a sole proprietor, if I'm unsure, I may have to do additional research to make sure that they're good to go and squared away. Now, I'm not saying it's not good to be a sole proprietor.
Okay.
I'm just saying that when going forward, that could be something that's there, but all entities can pursue contracting.
Okay. But starting from square one, let's say if somebody, they're a sole prop or sole proprietor, they have a sole proprietorship and they have a bank account or they have a DBA. So what exactly are you looking for? I mean, you're looking for bank statements, because a lot of times when you're talking about a sole proprietor, they're doing their taxes and their personal taxes and their business tax on one form.
Yes.
So what exactly would you be looking for as far as a sole prop?
So as a sole prop, I would be looking for, like you mentioned, I mean, it would be a good idea to have a DBA, particularly if they're using a trade name.
And that's doing business as?
Doing business as, or a fictitious business name, which is the same thing.
Yes.
Especially if they're using a name other than their name. Like,
Yes.
if they have a trade name that they're using. So get the DBA. I recommend getting the EIN. That way you don't have to use your personal social security number for business, right? So you mask that with the EIN, and of course having a bank account. From there, and a
website.
Well, for a business license with their municipality, right? A website is helpful, especially if you're a sole proprietor, because I want to look something up. So if you're a sole proprietor and you don't have a website, I'm
little Larry.
The image is someone in their garage, just kind of, not that anything's wrong with that, but that, compare that to this nice building we're in. So I would rather want to do business with the people in the nice building, because I know that they're spending money because they wouldn't be in this nice building. So I know there's an element of success within what they're doing.
Okay.
But to get started, all of that is kind of nuanced. To get started, you have those things we said, and my recommendation would be really two things after they're kind of set up as a business is to register to do business with the federal government via the System for Award Management, SAM.gov.
SAM.gov. Okay.
SAM.gov. That would be number one. And the second thing is to register to do business with their state.
Yes.
See, many people forget about the state. And so I would start at the federal level, registering in SAM, and then registering to do business with your state. Then from there, you can look at certifications, look at federal certifications, and then look at state certifications that you may be eligible for.
So when somebody goes to SAM.gov and they go ahead and they created an account with SAM.gov, when you say register with the state, you're talking about with the Secretary of State.
No. So when I'm talking about the state, I mean, like in the case of the state of California, the state of California has a procurement portal called Cal eProcure.
Okay.
It is managed by the Department of General Services, which is a department of the state of California.
Okay.
So that website is the procurement portal. And so anyone who wants to do business with the state of California, thou must be registered in that website.
Got it. So share that website again one more time.
Cal eProcure.
Outstanding. So let's say if they're already an LLC or an S Corp or even a C Corp, and they've already gone through the process as far as, having they're registered at SAM.gov. What then would be the next step? Because from my understanding, again, you're going to be my contractor. You're going to be the guy that I lean on heavily to do this. But I want to take a lot of the ambiguity out of the process, because again, some people, before they get started, what they'll do is they'll create limitations in their own mindset to whereas they say that they can't do that. There's something that they can't do. What I'm trying to explain to them is that the process is really straightforward. If you understand the process, and if you have a coach or a mentor or somebody guiding you through there, your success level is significantly higher versus you trying to do all this stuff by yourself. So let's say, again, they're LLC or they're structured to whereas they have asset protection. LLC, S Corp, C Corp. Then what's the next step?
So the next step for an LLC or a C Corp, they pretty much have everything set up. They're like, I'm registered, I'm kind of ready to go. They need to have a strategy.
Okay.
And you need to have a product or a service that you're selling. So sometimes I get clients that, they're like, hey, I'm starting a business and I want to do government contracting. I'm like, okay, all right, great. Like I can help, that's what I do. And and then I asked them, okay, well, what is your product or service that you're going to be selling to the government?
Yes.
And they're like, well, I don't really know. I'm like,
Yes.
well, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't know? Like, cause you're actually starting a business. Like especially if you're incorporating, you're going to be paying $800 a year, but yet you don't know if you're selling yet what you're going to sell. That's a problem for me. Like, especially as a consultant, because my role is to help my clients to not waste time, to not waste money, to reach their goals as efficiently, as quickly as possible. And sometimes to do that, I have to kind of like rain on the parade a little bit. And it's not that I'm discouraging them not to do contracting. I'm trying to encourage them to be more thoughtful about what they're trying to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so in this case, it would be creating a strategy around what you're selling.
Okay.
So if you have a product or service, then you want to flesh out who in the government may buy your product or service. And now this is a really great conversation, because is it the federal government, or is it Camp Pendleton that will buy it? Is it the 32nd Street down at the Navy that will buy it? Is it March Air Reserve Base? Or is it Riverside County?
Yes.
Or is it the state of California? So this is why it's important to know what you're selling to the government, because then the next step with me is going to be, all right, well, who might buy that? Like, we have to kind of figure that out.
Exactly. Now, I want people to understand, when we're talking about products and services, don't limit yourself and start thinking about, tanks and Humvees or armament. The government needs everything. They need markers. They need pens. They need paper. They need toilet paper. They need anything that you could think of, they need. Also services like janitorial services. I mean, lawn maintenance. So you may think that, well, the government, they may not want to use what I offer. But I had an uncle for years in Alabama who had a lawn maintenance service. And he started out just cutting grass. But then all of a sudden he transitioned to the point to whereas he started cutting grass for the government, for government entities. And he started getting these contracts. And then from there, he got more equipment, more employees, more services. And he was able to transfer that business down to his kids, which generated generational wealth. So again, don't limit yourself based on where you are now. You may think, well, I have this lawn service, I'm cutting grass, and that's about, I put a limit on myself. No, you can actually take that lawn service business and get these government contracts and then grow that business into a multi-million-dollar conglomerate.
Absolutely. So the plan that we're talking about, right, the strategy, like create a strategy to move forward, if you will, what this does for the business owner is it actually gives them a path to take.
Yes.
Right. These are military people, so they should understand that. Think back to boot camp and when you did your infantry training, the basic training, like when you went on patrols. The purpose of a patrol is to give you checkpoints along the route to get to the destination.
Exactly.
You can take a different route, you just do different checkpoints. So it's not like one route's the only way.
Yes.
Also, as we all know, the plan doesn't usually always go according to plan. Like something's always usually changes on the plan.
Yes.
But the benefit of having the plan is that you have something to adjust from or adjust to.
Exactly.
Right. You have something to compare to say, oh, we need to do this to get back on track. Without the plan, you don't know if you're back on track.
You don't know if you're on track or not.
You have no idea.
Exactly.
Right. And so that right there ends up being a very important element there in the sense. I had another thought that I was going to mention, and it actually. Oh, I know. I have a story real quick. It's really quick based on what you just said.
Okay.
So I had a client, a young lady, very astute business owner, like very smart woman. Okay. So she sells women's product like lotions and creams and hair products and stuff. And so she came to me wanting to do government contracting. So I'm once again, I'm transparent. So I'm like, hey, I can help. Although I do want to set up our engagement just to let you know that generally speaking, the government doesn't buy creams and hair stuff they don't buy that because that's a consumer product.
Okay.
The government purchases products and services to fulfill their mission and like to serve their organization.
Yes.
They're not going to buy you and I shaving cream or something like that. Now, once again, as I mentioned, I don't tell people this to discourage them. I just set them up just to let them know, where they're at.
Yes. Fast
Fast forward though. So I'm helping her and we learn about an opportunity at the female prisons. Now this is different. the female prisoners have people, ladies in them.
Yes.
Those are people.
Yes.
That they use personal products.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, they're in prison, so that means they're the government's property.
Yes.
So that means the government has to take care of that property. So she ended up getting a $5,000 contract for hair products and creams and stuff like that, and was looking and having conversations about 2 more after that. And this just happened earlier this year. I was really happy about that.
I'm glad you shared that story, because again, it goes back to people not limiting themselves based on having a desire and then having a goal and then being able to adapt and modify. Like, let's say you wanted to take those lotions and potions to active duty military, but that's not something that the government would buy into. But then you got the state level based on prisoners. So dealing with veterans, again, going back to disabled veterans, and because what I look at as far as even active duty, my philosophy is if you're on active duty military, they're creating veterans. And a lot of times, a lot of these veterans on active duty, they were told if they were injured, suck it up, drive on, you don't need to go to medical, yada, yada, yada. But you get out of the military and you go to apply for the VA claim, and all of a sudden you don't have evidence, or there's not a history of your injuries. So you may end up getting a lower disability rating, meaning that you applied, but let's say you were in aviation and you have a hearing loss, or you were around aviation or something like that, and you ended up with some type of another ailment. You were in the infantry and you got your problems with your feet or your hip. You got arthritis. So you may end up with a lower disability rating than you basically would have gotten had you had that evidence when you were on active duty. My question is, what is the lowest rating document that the government will accept based on your disability?
Well, so let me say, it's actually evidence that they're looking for.
Okay.
And so the evidence needs to be in the service record, in the medical record. And you can also have additional information from, like, let's say over the course of 5 years, this has been happening. You've been going to your civilian doctor and it's been documented. You can take that information along with the medical record and show that, yes, but the key though, where did it start? It has to be in the medical record.
Right.
I had a situation where I was going for a claim. I hurt my shoulder. Like I was in sergeant's course.
Okay.
I don't know why they did this, but I was with a guy probably twice my weight. It was goofy, and I ended up falling. He fell on me.
Okay.
I did not go to medical. I needed to. The reason why I didn't, because I was going to supply school. I was leaving sergeant's course to go to supply school to do the lap move stuff, right? Contracting school, whatever. And so, of course, if you're in a professional military education school, if you go to medical, you get dropped.
Yes.
And you have to go back.
Yes.
Well, I didn't want to get
Exactly.
dropped, so I didn't go. So fast forward, I've been having issues with my shoulder. I tried to put in a claim. I told them the story and this and that, and it's not in my record book. And it's not that you get a reduced claim. I cannot claim it because it is not. I cannot prove that this injury is service connected, which is crazy to me.
Well, sometimes you can actually use a buddy letter. Like if there was somebody that you were serving with during that time, and they actually wrote a statement, they could actually use it as a nexus or a buddy letter based on evidence. But I was talking about as far as once you have that disability rating from the VA, and let's say if that rating is 0% or 10% or 20%,
Gotcha.
What level? Like let's say if you were in the VRE program, Veterans Readiness and Employment program. The minimum is 10%. If you're 20%, then that actually affords you to other, benefits. So they're looking at a 10-20% ratio or threshold. As far as government contracting, what percentage of rating would they be looking for as far as being able to qualify to be disabled? To receive a government contract?
That's a great question, and the answer is that is 0%.
Okay.
So the whole key is to have a rating letter.
Yes.
So if you get a letter, then by virtue of the letter, you're determined to be service disabled.
Outstanding.
Because someone reviewed your submission, they just said, right now it's not a big thing, right?
Right.
It's 0%.
Right.
But because you have the injury documented, and because we all get older every day,
Yeah.
so something can happen next month where that injury now is worse off, and now you can go back and reclaim it, and now you do get a higher rating for it.
Exactly. When you were telling me about the story as far as being in sergeant school, and you had this giant guy on you, and both of you guys failed, but you didn't want to go to medical because it would have hindered you based on the training down the road.
My current
and the
career.
first thing I was thinking about was in Predator, where the SEALs went in there and the guy, he was injured, he got shot. He said, "I don't have time to bleed."
Right.
And that's the philosophy in the military. You don't have time to bleed. You don't have time to deal with a sore ankle that you probably tore some ligaments in, but you don't have time to do it.
I tell you what, though, we got to make the time, and I think I like what we're doing is teaching, especially the folks that are still in the military, but obviously the veterans
Yes.
as well. I love, you mentioned that when we spoke a little while back that the military creates veterans. That's an excellent statement. And what that means to you and I right now, especially with this conversation, is that those folks that are still in the military are us veterans out here who still have colleagues that are still in before
Yes.
they get out. That's when you should be working on ensuring that you understand everything that you could benefit from outside of the service.
Yes.
Meaning that, what do I got to do now while I'm in to make sure I'm set up when I get out? Because when you're still in, you have priority over us veterans out here, because you're still in. So that means if you go to the VA while you're still in,
Yes.
you'll get seen before someone like you or I.
Absolutely.
And so it's very important to do that. And then also the medical piece. We have to stop looking at it as if, going to medical makes us soft or something,
and
right?
weak, yeah.
And I didn't look at it at the time. I just didn't want to be held back, because we were at the end of the training. I would have to do another 6 weeks, and then that would have delayed my transition out. And so that was the reason why I didn't do it, because when I got to the next duty station, I immediately went and found out I had a broken hand and some other stuff.
Exactly. Now, you know what? We're about out of time right now, Troy. So we're going to wrap this up. We had a great conversation. We had a lot of information that was being disseminated today. People are not going to absorb this in one conversation. Okay, so let's say if they were interested in what you had to say today and they like the content, how can my viewers or either veterans or even active duty military, how can they reach you?
The best way to reach me really is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I may have an email and all of that. And email is Troy@Copperwater Consulting. You can visit my website, troyasmall.com. And also on LinkedIn, because I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's Troy Small MBA.
Okay.
But if you just search for me, Troy A. Small, I should pop up.
Okay.
I also have a YouTube channel. If anyone's interested, they can do a search for Troy A. Small.
Outstanding. And I like the information that you gave as far as having your disability rating could actually be 0%. So for me, that's another incentive for veterans to apply for their disability benefits. And even if you have a 0 rating, you can still apply for government contracts to create a secondary income, which can produce or has a potential of producing generational wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. And the caveat there is obviously you have to apply for the certification, that
Yes.
the service disabled veteran-owned small business certification.
Yes.
And then that will lead you to reduced competition, meaning when you have the certification, the government does set-asides. This is how it benefits you. So it means that only service disabled veteran small businesses can compete for this opportunity for this janitorial contract, or only veteran-owned small businesses who are certified can compete for this furniture contract. That's how it works. Small businesses, any other type, large business, or even women business for that case, in that particular instance, they wouldn't be able to participate.
Yes.
But although woman-owned small businesses are out there as well, and so when it's a woman-owned small business, everyone else can't participate unless they're a certified woman-owned small business.
So what you're actually saying to translate this is that they're waiting for you to apply.
They're waiting.
Once you get the certification, once you put yourself in a position, they're literally waiting for you to take the next step.
Our role as veterans and disadvantaged business owners is to put ourselves in place to get under the money that's out there. There's a lot of money that's dedicated to these programs but you have to apply
Yes.
and go down the path.
Yes.
That's quote unquote the hard part. That's the screening process.
Yes.
Many people don't want to do it for different reasons. But there's people like you and I, we'll just do it. Like, okay, what do I have to do to be successful? Fill this out? Okay, I'll fill this out. Now
Yes.
what? What do I do next?
Yes.
And then you put yourself in position to actually, quote unquote, get lucky.
Right.
Keep in mind also that these governments have rules. They have goals. They want to spend so much money on veteran-owned businesses,
Yes.
on disadvantaged businesses,
Yes.
on minority businesses. If they're not meeting their goals, that is an opportunity for us to say, hey, I'm here to help. And oh, by the way, I don't think you're meeting your goals. I can help you. I'm a veteran. I can make you reach your goals, and you can get this service done. So it's a
Outstanding.
win-win for everyone.
Outstanding. Well, Paul, I tell you what, Troy, I'm glad you came in today. Paul is sitting in the background. He's kind of waving at me and stuff. So again, we're out of time, but Troy, thank you for coming in today. Thank you for sharing this information with us. And again, give me your website one more time. It's Cooper Water.
Copperwater.com.
Okay, spell that. Spell it out so our viewers can know.
COPPERWATER consulting.com.
.com. But again, they can also find you at LinkedIn as well.
Yep, on LinkedIn, Troy A. Small on LinkedIn.
Outstanding. Well, again, this has been another episode of Closing the Wealth Gap. I'm your host, Tyrone French, and thank you for tuning in.
That's our show for this week. Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, the only show that shows you how to take control of your financial future. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OCTalkRadio.net.